You're listening to Barbell Logic,
the podcast where we talk about what it means to experience strength
and how you can use simple, hard, and effective strategies in training and nutrition to improve your life.
It starts with meeting you where you are right now and finding lasting solutions.
Welcome to the show.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Barbell Logic podcast. I'm your favorite host. Just kidding. I don't know, but probably. I'm your favorite host, Nikki Sims. With me is Andrew Jackson. And we have a guest with us today, Karl. He is our Director of Coaching Development.
Hi.
Hi. He's also a strength coach and a nutrition coach at Barbell Logic. Chief Education Officer.
But not in charge of the academy.
No, that's true. That's be CJ. Good point. Mm-hmm. And Karl, you might follow him on Instagram. You might not, but you've seen him lifting a lot. He has some great insights into his training and into the life of a lifter. And that's why we wanted to have him on here today, because we really appreciate his perspective. It's very philosophical. We like that about you, Karl.
Well, in particular, if you have been following Karl for, years on Instagram or social media, you would have seen him at times squatting well into the 500. What was your squat PR, your lifetime PR?
605 pounds.
605.
That was fun.
Just a few pounds.
Yeah.
Just a few pounds.
Benching also.
It was, I think, 475, but not in a meet.
475. Deadlifting into the 500s, right?
Yeah, I got 577 on deadlift that one time in Texas, but I don't know how I did it.
Always chasing that 600.
Yeah, that's where the chase stopped. It never went any further than that.
Yeah, so definitely built to squat. The short femur, long torso, like almost no change in back angle, despite trying for many years to change your back angle, if I remember correctly. But
oh gosh, we could talk. I mean, that's another topic. But coaches who have a visual in mind instead of the model, and they encounter a lifter like me who doesn't fit the model, and they try to make me fit the model. And you can't. You're not going to make my squat or my deadlift look like the pictures.
Yeah. Karl and I are the opposite anthropometric spectrum models.
Right. A former client of mine that's a fan of yours, she calls herself Infinity Femurs because she's similar. I have infinitesimal femurs. They're there, but
they're useful.
Yeah.
One of the things I always kind of get excited about when I watch you squat is like how early you can set your knees. Like they just don't have to move very far. And then you just get to sit down in the bottom of the squat. I'm like so jealous. So I feel like my knees are moving up till the very last second, even if it's like the thing I'm focusing on moving first.
Yeah.
It's just always knee movement. But
I think there's knee motion and then there's knee motion. I know we're kind of off topic, but if your knees move through your descent and then through the bottom,
yeah,
I think that's bad. If they stop at all before you turn it around, I think we're okay.
Correct. Yeah.
But sliding through is no good. Yeah, but I could put a teacup on them and just leave it there. They're not going to move. I don't know why you all complain about squats so much. It's fun and easy.
Yeah, it's such a mystery.
The point of that introduction was that, big, impressive numbers for anybody. And recently you've had to sort of reset those standards and expectations. And I thought it would be interesting for our listeners and for me in particular, personally as well, to talk about what your experience has been through this last year or so. I guess it's been less time than that even, but what the backstory and then how you've kind of handled it from the mental side of things, knowing that you still want to train, you still want to be strong, and kind of what that transition's been like. So maybe just so people know what we're talking about, and I'll leave it up to you for how much you want to share. But
yeah, well, it goes back a little further than that. When we did a move with the family, and I noticed that things were getting heavier. So there's a lot of things contributing to this, and then one in particular thing. But I was carrying around 258 pounds of body weight for all the PRs, and I was still around 258, but the weights weren't there. And we had moved, and that was a big upheaval. Plus, I'm 52 years old. At some point,
spring chicken.
Yeah, at some point, you're not a spring chicken. And that curve that's got that eternal upward motion to it kind of doesn't anymore. And so I had thought about losing weight. I'd done it before. So I think that was probably last October I started to cut. I figured 258 was too big. But then we had more fun in January. It's actually January 6th. I wrote this all down so I could remember the details.
January 6th. What were you doing on January 6th, Karl?
I was not at the Capitol. I was running a seminar, and I found that all of a sudden I was aphasic, that I couldn't talk, that words would not come out of my mouth.
Oh, my.
Don't know if you've ever had that experience. It's very, very strange.
No, that is really weird.
Yeah, and I felt generally weird, and I was looking in the camera, and I saw like half of my face was drooping, and I know enough to know what that is, and I texted my wife. I said, I think I'm having a stroke. And she, of course, freaked out. It's strange. I could not talk, but I could text. There are different pathways in your brain, apparently. So that was fun. So she took me to the hospital, and by fun, I mean not. Yeah. I said goodbye to the seminar. I said, I'm having a little trouble, and sorry about this. Need to end the seminar. Went to the hospital, and, they did the test, and yes, sure enough, there had been a stroke. It was what's called a TIA, a transient ischemic attack. This is the kind you want to have. You don't want the ones that kill half of your brain. So transient means no long-term effects. But it was very strange because I don't have any of the risk factors. Well, it's a long story, but this was pretty scary for a while. I mean, we had the MRI, which kind of like, I don't really want to talk about this, but we're talking about it. There was evidence of microvascular damage from who knows how long. So something had been happening. Well, it turns out, I'll get to with no risk factors. So the doctor's like, I don't know what's going on, which is not what you want to hear when you go, or to the auto mechanic, I don't know what's wrong with your car. You don't want them to say that. You want them to say, well, it's the fan belt or something. So we had to do a lot of research on that and figure it out. I think it was finally the neurologist that figured it out. So here's what it turns out to be. It turns out to be a patent foramen ovale. I'm not sure how the doctors pronounce that. It's Latin for open oval hole in the wall of the heart.
Wow.
It is congenital. It's not my fault. I didn't do anything. I didn't power lift my way and through a Valsalva pop a hole in my heart wall. But it's about 1 in 5 people.
That's reassuring.
Yeah, it's about 1 in 5 people. And for most people, it's asymptomatic. What it does is it allows blood to go the wrong way. So the blood goes through your extremities and then back through your heart and then through your lungs and back through your heart and back through your extremities. It's a double layer of tubing. And what can happen is that the lungs are the place where if you have a clot or something going on, that's where it goes to be taken care of. And so if you have blood that's not going through the lungs, then that can get up in the brain and cause trouble, which is probably what happened. They do a cool test. It's called a bubble test, where they take blood out and then they squish it around, make bubbles in it, and then they put it back in. And then they use the ultrasound. That's what it's called. They use it to see the bubbles. You can tell which way it's going. They have you hold your breath. This all makes me think of things in my lifting career, because I'm holding my breath all the time. So I hold my breath and there's like the My Chart thing says uncountable bubbles. So there's 5 grades. 1 is not very bad and 5 is infinite bubbles, and mine's a grade 5. So that was cool. That was fun. Fortunately, there's something they can do about it.
Nikki has infinite femurs and you have infinite bubbles.
I did. Yeah. Yeah, well, it's making me think, there I am squatting 605 and my blood's going backwards.
Yeah. And were you feeling anything while you were lifting? Like any...
No. I mean, I got migraines pretty often, but I had always gotten migraines, which that's another part of the story. And so I remember I told Hambrick, imagine what I could have lifted if I didn't have this darn hole in my heart. And he, of course, says, probably not 1 pound more.
The eternal optimist.
Yeah. Fortunately, there's a way to, the migraines are part of the story. There's a way to fix it. Apparently, I was digging in on this, and so was the heart surgeon where I'm at, that there's a significant correlation with migraines and having these holes. And this is the one benefit of it, is I haven't had a migraine since they fixed it.
Wow.
Oh my gosh, that's major.
And I used to have terrible migraines. I remember a 3-day migraine. I'm thinking that was a stroke. I had in grad school, I was out for 3 days thinking what was going on. But anyway, this is a cool thing that they put. It's kind of like 2 round panels connected by a wire in your heart. They go through both sides of your groin I was out for this, but they go up through the veins into the heart, and they stick it through the heart while it's beating.
It's amazing.
And then they grab it on the other end, and then they pull it until it's tight.
That is absolutely incredible.
And there it is. So I have hardware in me at the moment. Got the trademark and the barcode for it in case I have to go through an airport scan and they see this thing. But it closes the hole and the heart wall grows around it, and it seems to be pretty good.
And how long did that whole stretch of troubleshooting and treatment take?
Well, it took about 9 months to get it all figured out.
9 months. And were you training at all during that time?
I was, but I wasn't expecting.
Oh, wow.
The doctor said, keep doing whatever you're doing. But I was losing weight at the same time. And then after the thing got stuck in, they say, don't lift anything. Don't do anything for a month. After a month, you'll be okay. Apparently, some guy went rucking at 3 weeks and he popped his out. But after 4 weeks, they haven't had anybody embolize it, is what they call it. So I waited 4 weeks, and I had dropped 50 pounds pretty much by that point. I'm around 208 today.
From the 258 in January to September?
Well, 258 in October, but yeah, it took about 10 months. So, all the strength evaporated.
That's pretty aggressive weight loss, right? I mean, you've done cuts in the past. That's 5 pounds a month, roughly.
20% body weight.
Yeah, but, when you have plumbing issues, there are risk factors for strokes and such that you think, could I carry the extra 50 pounds and chase some PRs? Well, on the one hand, I'm probably not going to ever exceed what I did.
And how do you feel about even having to say that?
It's funny. I was talking to a certain CEO of a company. He's like, I think I could probably, pull 700 again. And I'm just looking at him. No, you probably can't. But he doesn't want to say it, He just doesn't want to say that.
It's hard to say it out loud.
It is hard to say it. I will never get another PR again, unless it's an odd 13 rep max on something. I will never beat my 1 rep maxes, it's a day that comes, that it's not so hard to say right now, but it was pretty hard to say. You're always like, if I have a good run,
Yeah, I mean, especially when we've been saying PRs matter, and we still say it. I mean, and I think I even saw you recently say that, right?
Yeah, PRs matter. Well, you have to situate the PR in context of who you are and what you're doing. And me being me, I'm going to give you some classical reference. So there was this guy, Odysseus, and he was lost at sea for 10 years. He'd been at war for 10 years, and he was lost at sea for 10 years. And finally, he's on his way home, and he's at a banquet with the Phaeacians. You can look it up in the Odyssey. It's all these young guys. They're like, we're going to do some athletic games right now, but you're too old. You can't do it. You're no athlete, they say to him. You're no competitor. That's what athlete means. And, well, his courage gets stirred by that, and he gets up and he flings the discus farther than any of them. And he says, I can still do this stuff, except I can't run as fast. So he knows that he can't do everything he used to do, but he can still do some stuff. So it's not all desolation. I was thinking of Sully's phrase, be an athlete of aging. You're still going to be pretty impressive.
In the most extreme sport.
Yeah. And you also have done all those things.
Yeah. I mean, I can say I've done it, and not too many other people can. It's fun to have done, but, I was out pressing yesterday. It wasn't very heavy for me, but, I'm 208, so for skinny Karl, I guess it's heavy. So I did, 4 sets of 4 at 150, and I was pretty excited about that. And I didn't mention my press PR. I did 275 at a gym in Alabama on vacation once. There was nobody to see it. So I have the video. Just felt light that day, and I had to go for it. But, I'm never going to do that again. But that 150 felt, pretty good. That's an accomplishment. It's still, it's still shiny and glorious, I guess, even though it's not what I used to do.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I think when we're talking to clients all the time, we're not judging their 155-pound press or their 225-pound squat to the 1,000-pound world record or our personal records. It's what is that accomplishment in that moment for them? It's still exciting. It's still challenging for them. It's still something that is a process of getting stronger and virtuous, to use your terms, I would say.
Well, it's just neat. So I wrote this little thing a while back on glory as a motive for training. It's kind of like, this is a silly word, but it's kind of how shiny you are. It's how neat you are. It's not, virtue is a little bit different. Virtue has moral connotations. And I don't know that your squat probably does have moral connotations. But also, darn it, it's just neat to see you accomplish that thing when you couldn't before. It's objectively a cool thing. Think of the PR as that, or the PR in the moment, that when you go into the gym and you get your work done, it in itself is a good thing. And you don't need to justify it by saying it's the most I've ever lifted ever.
Right.
Because there are many people who would get a PR and it wouldn't be that important to them because they just don't care about PRs and maybe it's just something that they expect. But if you have the mindset of really appreciating all the work that it took to get there and that it's the most you've ever done, then you can take that same mindset into training when it's not about PRs and be really present to, this is still neat.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you put a whole bunch of weight on your back and you squatted down and you stood up. It's objectively a great action that you did. And I would say it doesn't even need anybody to know about it. I mean, people knowing about it helps, makes it feel better, but it's a good thing. Okay, here's some more classical stuff for you. Aristotle says there are two types of goods. Okay, there are good things that are good. They're extrinsic goods. They're goods because they get you something else. Like money is good because it gets you ice cream. Okay? And then there are intrinsic goods, things that are good in and of themselves, like the ice cream. You don't eat ice cream for the sake of something else. That would be weird. You just eat ice cream because it's good. And that heavy weight that you move in the gym, that's a noble deed in and of itself. And it doesn't matter if it contributes to anything else. You've both been athletes. Like, what's the point of an athletic accomplishment except the accomplishment? It doesn't make you make more money. If you win the BJJ tournament, does it get you something?
It's the pursuit of the accomplishment that has the intrinsic value to me. It always has been that the accomplishment every single time has been actually a feeling of letdown and disappointment in many cases, emotionally.
Yeah.
There's a very brief moment of celebration and then almost an immediate letdown.
Yeah, so maybe we've got it backwards, that the meat is the motive. It's kind of like the reverse motive for the training. You set up the meat to give shape to the training, but the training's the thing that you really cared about all along.
Yes, that was what I enjoyed the most. That's where I got the most fulfillment from, was pursuing the thing.
That was your ice cream.
Yeah, that's what I've come to really appreciate, and what I think makes training, even when I'm not hitting PRs now, I'm able to, I think, be more present with just enjoying how I feel doing the thing, because I don't know if I've quite hit the point where I'm never going to hit a PR again, but if I do, it's maybe once or twice a year at best.
I was just going to ask you that.
But what were the conversations like with your coach through the process?
My coach actually worked as a nurse doing this kind of stuff, so he was pretty good about it. I'm a low maintenance client anyway. Just tell me what to do and I'll do it.
Yeah.
The only thing I hoped that we could do, we kind of reset the PRs down because it's annoying to have really high PRs. And
that's the one that I was really kind of getting at, because it was, what was it, about a month ago? Jordan reached out to me and asked if we could do that. And it took me a minute to kind of wrap my head around how to do it, but it seemed like that was an important thing.
Yeah, it's nice to get those little, what color they come in? Green, those little green things in the app. I don't remember what color it is. Don't be mad at me. But when it pops up that you've got a PR, and that's neat. But it's not an absolute PR. It's like a local PR. So we reset those. So that was very nice. I appreciated that. I know it was a little bit of effort to do it. But as for training, we're just doing a linear progression. And I'm pretty much going to stay probably standard 210. However strong I can get. Being skinny, it's all right. It'll still be pretty strong.
Is this the first time you've lifted at this body weight for a long amount of time?
Last time I think I got down to 220, and then I went back up and hit some more PRs. So this is the lightest I've been in a long time, probably since college lifting.
And how does it feel like outside of the gym? Do you feel...
Yeah, just day-to-day life to be 50 pounds lighter.
Well, there's some interesting things. So when you are 258 pounds apparently I'm 5'10" now. I think I shrunk an inch. But, walking around at that size, it's kind of fun. You don't look like everybody else, and people know that you lift. That's kind of fun. But there are other things that are not so, like it's hard to find clothing that fits, and, hallways become difficult to manage. So being normal sized, it's a little weird because nobody, like if you look at me, nobody knows now looking at me, he's a lifter. At the beach, they'll know, but they won't know, like when I'm clothed, they won't know. So that's a little bit different.
There's a quote that comes to mind, I think I saw from Paul Horn, that you can either look jacked in a t-shirt or jacked on the beach, but you can't have both.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I saw that. But on the other hand, I was writing down some notes for this. There's kind of a freedom to it that when you do figure out that you're off the absolute PR trail, that there are some other activities that open up to you. Like, might go for a run. Whereas before you wouldn't. Well, one thing, running at 258 is that's a lot of meat in motion.
That's huffing.
Yeah.
Meat in motion.
But it's not going to hurt your gains, or at least not enough that you care about. So go for a run or go hiking or get your 10,000 steps in or whatever. I'm probably not going to ruck. I don't think I'm going to do that. I was tempted because my kids do jujitsu. I was tempted to go over there, but I can't do that yet because I'm still on the anticoagulants. So I never used to bruise in my life, but now I'm bruising. So I might have to wait until I run through that. And then I might show up at their, what do you call it? Dojo? Well, I know Nikki's martial arts person.
Studio?
Might show up at the studio.
At the school, at the academy. My school was called the academy.
Well, I mean, the academy was a gym. The original one. In addition to being, philosophy. It was a gym.
That's cool. I like that.
Think of Plato as a gym owner. Imagine him. He's like Stanton or somebody. He's working over gym accounts.
Did he ask his clients how much they were going to lift each day instead of tell them?
I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, so there's that freedom. I think that's good.
I found, and I'm wondering if you found this too, I found that I became a lot more open-minded to and appreciative of what other people were doing at the gym. Whereas we were in this space for a while where it was really common to be elitist and snobbish about if you are not low bar squatting or lifting heavy, then whatever you're doing in the gym is rubbish. And kind of since my cycle of not being able to get near PRs or lift as heavy, I'm just really appreciative that other people are at the gym working hard. And I have no idea what their backstories are. Maybe they had injuries too. Maybe they had health issues. Maybe they just haven't gotten into lifting yet. But I find myself just more appreciative of everybody at the gym, which is, I think, a lot different than how I used to be. And I think that feels nice.
Yeah, I mean, I still think nothing's changed on how important strength is. If you are strong, your life will be easier. You should be strong. We have efficient ways to get you strong. However, the curve does eventually bend and then go the other way. And you're still going to be training at that point. Well, what's your training going to look like? If you're not training for a PR, you're just going to grunt and groan at that 1 rep max that you're not hitting. You're going to, by definition, you're going to have to lift lighter. Well, how are you going to organize that? I mean, this is one of the insights. I know what you're talking about. We used to mock the idea that, it's got to be heavy. And if it's not heavy, it's somehow not worth doing. Well, maybe it can not be heavy. I mean, I think my personal take on that now is training ought to be hard if it's going to be productive. Otherwise, we make that distinction between training and exercise. If you want to exercise, that's fine. Like when I go for a walk, it's not hard. It's okay. But if you're training, it's got to be hard, but not necessarily heavy. And once you get over that hump where you're not going to be setting PRs anymore, in an absolute sense, it's never heavy. That 150 I did on the press is not heavy. It was heavy for me yesterday, but it's not heavy for my absolute numbers. So none of my training is heavy right now, but it's getting hard. So that's a shift. I mean, we've been doing some talking about that over at Barbell Logic.
Hard but doable. It comes up again.
Yeah, I mean, are you collecting good hard sets? Are you doing, yeah, you know what I mean. It should be hard, but if it's not, 93% of your all-time PR, that's all right. Because probably it's not ever going to be 93% of your all-time PR again.
I mean, you're accumulating hard sets. What else is directing your training right now? Or what do you see as the objective of your training?
The objectives of training are to be able, for example, to dance at a granddaughter's wedding, to be able to take care of my chickens.
Can you dance now?
Yes, of course. Of course I can. Sorry. I'm offended, Nikki. I would say that.
I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it yet.
It was on one of Andrew's reels when he was doing dance routines on Instagram.
Oh, that was some years ago. Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, I've got some moves. But, I've got chickens to take care of. We got some acreage here that I want to get some food out of. And I'm the guy that does most of the work. So I need to be fit for that. Nobody lives forever, but you want to compress your morbidity to be a little short period at the end. Ideally, you have coffee with your wife and then you go out and tend your property or whatever and drop dead in the middle of the field. That's how compressed you want it to be. That's why you lift. You don't want to, because we're seeing some end of life stuff in some acquaintances and family, and it's not great. You're sitting in a chair or you're lying in a bed for 2 or 3 years. It's just, no thanks. No thanks. So that should be enough reason to train so that you can stay as active and vigorous and have as much of a human life as you can for as long as you can.
I like that, active and vigorous. That's fun.
Yeah. As far as the shape of training, right now it's linear progression. We're just trying to gain back what I can gain back at this body weight. And then, I don't know, maybe we'll play around and do bodybuilding or something.
And I guess that's where I'm going indirectly. You've been leading a lot of discussions around hypertrophy in the Barbell Logic Slack channel. I'm curious if partly this shift has piqued that interest because the objective really becomes, even when you're driving strength, my personal opinion is over the long haul, really you're talking about building muscle mass, because to be stronger, you need more muscle mass. To be vigorous and active later into your life, you need more muscle mass. So I'm curious if that's changed your perspective on coaching or influenced your interest in hypertrophy as an objective of training more specifically than just seeing weight on the bar going up as a proxy for strength.
Yeah, at some point you can't keep putting weight on the bar and you have to do something else. And even when you're still making PRs, you have to do something else, which is why we go from, 3 times a week putting more weight on the bar to every week putting more weight on the bar to every 8 weeks to every 12 weeks or to some other kind of periodization and lengthen it out. And what are you doing in those? Let's say you have a 12-week block program. What are you doing in 9 of those weeks? You're trying to build muscle mass. And then in the last 3 or 4, you're learning how to use that muscle mass. So I think I agree with you that you do have to build muscle mass. You do have to build hypertrophy. Now, my focus hasn't been, this is not bodybuilding. This is just the idea that it sure seems like from the science, can you hear the quotes there from the science, that for the purposes of building muscle mass, the absolute weight on the barbell doesn't matter as long as your sets are hard, which opens up all kinds of avenues for programming and training. You don't have to worry that you're going to mess something up.
And questions like, how do I know if I'm going hard enough and not going too hard and doing something that I'm unable to recover from?
The thing that I've been experimenting with is having clients do they're not really AMRAPs, they're like AMRAPs -2, where you go to 2 reps in reserve, and you have to watch them because some of them will sandbag and some of them will do the opposite of sandbag and they'll grind it out. Like, that was a pretty hard RPE 8 you just did. So you have to monitor them, and there are clients that aren't going to be able to do it, and you just have to give them weights and reps. But what we're trying to do is just keep doing good, hard work. And if you go too hard, the problem is that you screw it up, and then you can't train for 2 or 3 weeks because you've injured yourself, or maybe even longer. So in the long term, you're an athlete of aging. You have to be, you want to be like, what's his name? Clausen. You want to be training when you're 98 years old. That means you have to be careful when you're 52. It's a bit of freedom. It's not like, if it's not heavy, it's crap. No, that's an attitude that I want to say two things about that. The focus on it being heavier is good for a novice. It's good, but I think it's rhetorically good. In other words, it's not quite true, but it's true to believe. Okay? You have to add weight every time you go to the gym until you don't. This is a good message for people to hear that if they don't know what they're doing in the gym and they go and screw around 3 times a week and don't make any progress. Well, have you tried putting more weight on? You know, that'll work. When you become intermediate advanced, that's not the answer anymore.
Yeah, I think there's a huge range of weights, intensities, reps, number of sets that you get to play with. I think there's still a practical component that triangulates the program back to a more manageable or relatively small window of sets and reps and intensities. You're probably still going to be somewhere between 4 and 15 reps, just because if you go too much lighter, then it's going to be hard to know whether, is it hard? Well, if I'm doing a 2-pound dumbbell, I could do that indefinitely. And I'm probably going to stop because I'm either bored or I'm out of breath, Yeah,
you're never going to program somebody 35% on the squat, are you? How many reps do they have to do?
And then you can't go too heavy. Otherwise, you're just in survival mode for 2 or 3 reps and you're probably not actually, training the muscle productively. You can't go too many sets or else you're not going to be able to get it done in the day. So I think you end up really getting constrained down to the programs that we tend to fall into from the practical considerations and knowing that they have to be hard sets.
Yeah. I mean, the good programs, 3x5s, it's pretty good. 5s are good.
You can do 2 or 3 exercises in about an hour, maybe an hour and a half if it's getting heavy and you need more rest. But 5s get you a pretty moderately heavy thing that you can do, and you can know that you're close to failure in somewhere between 5 and 8 reps. But it still gives you quite a bit of flexibility, I think, or at least a lot more than I used to think I did. That it needed to be this precise thing where you were always incrementing up.
Well, so it has to be precise if you're expecting to get a PR every 2 weeks or every 3 weeks. You've got to set it up so that, you can get this. Well, if our time scale is much longer, or if the PRs don't even come into consideration, then, it's like, it doesn't matter so much the details of what you're doing because your focus isn't the absolute PR anymore. It's getting good, solid training in, which can be done any number of ways.
If you're curious about how to do that, I would recommend scheduling an experience call with us, barbelllogic.com/experience. And check out Karl on Instagram. His Instagram handle is shoot, SCHUDT_strength. Right?
Yep, that's it. Yeah, easy to say, hard to spell.
Karl, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, it's been fun.
Really appreciate getting to hear that from you. Yeah, and thanks, Andrew.
Until next time.
We will see you all next week. Thank you.